2.0 non-fiction texts. The total amount of time for this paper is 1 hour and 55 minutes. The total number of marks is 80. There are 2 texts that you have to read, and there are 6 reading questions, which we're going to go through today, and there is 1 writing question. So what I like to tell my students before they read the text is to read the question. A really important thing that students should try and do as they're reading the questions is underline the key parts of the questions. So here we're being asked to identify 4 things that women should think about when choosing clothing. Now, if we open the booklet here, you will see that we've got the text. So it says, first of all, really important thing to note is the part of the text in italics is not part of the actual text itself. So do not quote from this part because you will not be getting the marks. It is always quite important to read the context, though, to give you an idea of what type of text it is. So this extract is from a manual about good manners written in 1855 that gives young women advice on fashion and how to create their own clothes. When a lady walks a dusty street, sweeping the pavement with an amplitude of unmanageable skirts and evidently collecting upon her underskirts and lower part of her person the dust or mud of the thoroughfare, everyone sees that it is an improper walking dress, however suitable to the parlour or the carriage. You'll notice that there's little 1s and 2s here, which can be found in the glossary down here. It's always good to kind of take note of what they are as you go through, just so you have a better understanding of the text. The morning dress should be light, soft, and pleasant to the touch. So I'm going to underline that part of the text here just because I'm thinking about this question. Think about when choosing clothes. The full dress, elegant. Again, I'm going to underline that part. And as Richard's circumstances admit, with colours and style well chosen and adapted to the form, age, complexion, and condition. So of the hair. Fashion and taste must be consulted. The best general advice I can give is to wear well-fitting shoes, to wear a well-fitted dress and not deprive the lungs of 1 ounce of air that belongs to them, nor interfere with the action of any organ. Leave the movements of the body as free as these of an athlete. If you have taste and a moderate degree of skill, you may easily make every article of dress you wear, from bonnet to boots, except that it may be convenient to have the shoemaker put the soles on your shoes. But all the rest you can make by a careful study and practice. And what a sense of independence it creates, to say nothing of economy. So straight away now, I'm going to go back to those bits that I've underlined. Identify 4 things that women should think about when choosing clothing. So they should hopefully think about it being light, soft, and pleasant to sight and touch. So I'm writing that down there. As you can see, I'm going to quote light, soft, pleasant to the sight and touch. Now, you can quote for this question. You can put it in your own words. You can do a combination of both, as I have just done. Clothing should be elegant. Okay, I try and avoid 1-word answers because you just want to give yourself as much of a chance as possible to get that mark. Clothes should be well chosen. And then finally, I'm going to look at another one, however suitable. So, and it should not be improper. So I'm going to say clothes should be suitable for the occasion. There's always more than 4 different answers here. So don't feel like, oh, there's only 4 answers. I feel like they're all the same. So what you really need to think about is basically ensuring that each answer is different. You don't want a duplication of points. You also want to note that it's only 4 marks, okay? So you want to be spending about 4 or 5 minutes, preferably a little less, to give you some time to get through the rest of the paper. Always good to read back your points just to check that you haven't duplicated any. And yeah, we are on to question 2. So question 2, straight away, you should note that lines 5 to 17. So whereas the former question didn't have any line parameters, this one does. I personally like to kind of note on my paper where I should be taking it from, just so I don't kind of go out of those line limits. This one is a point evidence explain question. Okay, so you don't need to be listing language features. You don't need to be analyzing the language. It's only 6 marks. What a lot of students do here is they see this question and they try and fill up all the space. They try and write loads and loads. Most important thing though here is 1, it's 3 paragraphs that you need to write. So it's point, evidence, explanation times 3. And also the other thing that's really important to note is that it's an evaluative question. So we are evaluating, which means we need to give our own opinion. Okay. A great tip to use is to borrow that word successfully. So I think the writer is successful at doing what? Okay, now this is where you want to read the question back. I think the writer is successful about advising women should wear. And rather than saying this is shown in the text when the writer says, I've just put a colon, I'm going to open my quote, and I'm going to go with the same one I used over here. Light, soft, and pleasant. Light, soft, and pleasant to the sight and touch. Now, what are we talking about here? We're talking about the fabric of the clothes. So full stop there. So I'm on to my explanation part now, suggests women should consider the type of fabric they choose to wear. So I'm going to show you the mark scheme. Up. So obviously, I'm only going to do 1 paragraph, but you need to do 3 in the exam. This is the kind of level 2 answer, I would say, because we're explaining clearly here. Okay, we've explained this part in our own words. I'm going to use a different color. We've explained this part in our own words. Okay, clearly we are selecting references which are appropriate and relevant. Okay, we're talking about what women should wear. So quite obviously there, that is appropriate. And finally, we've offered clear evaluative opinion with personal judgments. Okay, so here the I is clearly personal, and we've evaluated it. We've said whether it is successful or not. Now, if you're aiming for this box, level 3, 5 and 6 marks, you want to be a bit more critical. Okay, so you've got to try and be, you've got to look at what they're saying and try and criticize it. So what are the shortcomings of this text? How might the advice not be quite relevant? So you could say something like, I believe the text is unsuccessful. Unsuccessful in advising women of what to wear. And now this is where you have to put your own ideas across. So if you want level 2 or 3, you can agree. However, level 3 or 4, it demonstrates on this mark scheme that you need critical or developed critical evaluation. So I believe the text is unsuccessful in advising women of what to wear because it only offers advice to women about morning dress. I'm just going to show you the text again. So here we're only being told about the morning dress, okay? We're not being told about the rest. So therefore we're being we're starting to develop criticism. Now, point is there, the evidence is there. Now I've got to explain what we mean. This text does not offer general advice on clothing in all circumstances and only focuses on women's morning wear. Okay, so this second paragraph in purple is now it's starting to analyze, okay, because we're saying what it doesn't do, its shortcomings, and we're being critical. I'm still offering my personal beliefs. Okay, so even if you want to get into 5 and 6, you can't forget to use your own opinion. It has to be really clear that you're using your own opinion. We're still quoting, even if it's just 2 words, we're still quoting, and we've explained why we think there are shortcomings. Obviously, you need to do 3 reasons in the exam, okay? If you don't do 3 reasons, you're going to be stuck. I think it's in level 1 you're going to be stuck in. So make sure you get 3 reasons. Another really important thing here is because it's 6 marks and because it is the second question in the exam, don't spend too long on it. You want to get going in this paper. There's 7 questions to answer in total. So you really need to try and be quick with this question and pick up the pace here. Now, on to question 3. Straight away, we should start thinking, just by reading the question, how does the writer use language to interest and inform the reader? Personally, I like to split the question in half. Interest is going to be 1 paragraph. Inform is going to be another paragraph. We've got that word language there, and effect on the reader. So we know that this needs to be a petal paragraph. Okay, that stands for point, evidence. Just going to write tech for technique. analysis. And then really to just make sure that we're doing this part, effect on reader, we want to link to reader. So this time when we're starting, a really good idea is to kind of look at the text and spot some language features. What again I'm noting is elegant, rich, pleasant, light, soft. Oh, we've got a rule of 3 there, light, soft, and pleasant. Okay, so I'm going to use that rule of 3. Now, if you're struggling to come up with a point, look back to question 2. They've already told you that the text offers advice about clothes women should wear. So you can always steal that point. So how does the writer use language to interest and inform the reader? Again, try and borrow the language of the question. The writer informs the reader about women should wear by describing the ideal texture and look of clothing. Again, I'm just going to jump straight into a colon here, open my speech marks, light, soft, and pleasant. Light, soft, and pleasant to the sight and touch. Close it. Now I'm getting in my language feature here. This triplet emphasizes that women should consider carefully an array, or you could have range of different things when choosing clothing. Now, what's the effect on this reader? How does this make us feel as a reader? That's a full stop. As a reader, emphasize that a bit. As a reader, we are aware of the many considerations to take account of before choosing our dress. Okay, again, this paragraph, this question is 8 marks. So you want to be spending, I'd say, roughly 12 to 15 minutes. Okay, you also want to be doing at least 2, hopefully 3. Okay, hopefully 3 paragraphs here. The reason why I say 3 is because if I show you the mark scheme, we want to be into level 3 at least. So we need to demonstrate an exploration. If you're only doing 2 paragraphs, it's difficult for the examiner to justify that you're exploring the text, because you want to look at a range of different ideas. We've also quite obviously got references to the text, which are detailed, appropriate, and fully support the points being made. And finally, we've got, obviously, you want to use a range. So if you've got 2 language features, is that a range? Personally, I think 3 is a range. So really, you want to be aiming for 3 paragraphs here in about 12 to 15 minutes. Use petal. It's a really good way to think about this question. And if you struggle to come up with points, a point can be a single word. The writer interests the reader by discussing how fashion could be subjective, and you could talk about the subjective nature of fashion. You could talk about the adjectives in the text: light, soft, elegant, pleasant, rich. So yeah, this is a really important question. I'd say it's 8 marks. Okay, so it's a fairly, it's 10% of this paper. So you need to give this question a good shot. But again, don't spend too much time in it. 12 to 15 minutes. Question 4. I like this question. It's split into 2 parts. Really important thing to note is that this question is about text 2. So questions 1 to 3 are text 1. Questions 4, 5, and 6 are text 2. Don't make the mistake of reading the wrong text for the wrong question. Again, you've got line parameters here from lines 1 to 8. So I'm going to go over to the text and just draw around lines 1 to 8. Again, beware of the italics. I'm just going to read lines 1 to 8 quickly. In purchasing articles of wearing apparel, whether it be a silk dress, a bonnet, shawl, or ribbon, it is well for the buyer to consider 3 things: that it not be too expensive, that its color harmonize with her complexion, and its size and pattern with her figure, that its tint allow of its being worn with other garments she possesses. To brunettes, or those ladies having dark complexions, silks of a dark hue are adapted. For blondes, or those having fair complexions, lighter colors are preferable, as the richer, deeper hues are too overpowering for the latter. Now I'm going to go back to the question. Identify 2 pieces of advice that the writer talks about. Again, you can quote, you can put it in its own words. I think this is an easy one because they've even numbered it for you. Clothes should not be too expensive. And I'm going to go with the second one there. The color of clothes should harmonize with her complexion. Okay, and you can quote, or you can put it in your own words. It doesn't really matter too much. Question 4A is all about explicit, okay? So it's asking explicitly for information from this part of the text. Question 4B rather, is more implicit. So it's a bit more difficult. I'm going to read the rest of the text just so we understand it. The colors which go best together are green with violet, gold with dark crimson or lilac, pale blue with scarlet, pink with black or white, and grey with scarlet or pink. A cold colour generally requires a warm tint to give life to it. Grey and pale blue, for instance, do not combine well, both being cold colours. The dress of the lady should always be adapted to her circumstances and be varied with different occasions. Thus, at breakfast, she should be attired in a very neat and simple manner, wearing no jewellery. If this dress should only be worn to the breakfast hour, then it would be well to exchange it before the time for receiving visitors, if the mistress be in the habit of doing so. 3. Morning calls and visits may be made and received. These may be divided into 3. Those of friendship, courtesy, and condolence. Visits of courtesy, which occasionally merge into those of friendship, are to be paid under various circumstances. These visits should be short, a stay of from 15 to 20 minutes being quite sufficient. A lady paying a visit may remove her scarf or neckerchief, but neither shawl nor bonnet. 4. In paying visits of friendship, it will not be necessary to be guided by etiquette as in paying visits of ceremony. And if a lady be pressed by her friend to remove her shawl and bonnet, it can be done. 5. For morning courtesy calls, it's good to be neatly attired. For a costume very different to that you generally wear, or anything approaching an evening dress, will be very much out of place. As a general rule, it may be said, both in reference to this and all other occasions, it is better to be underdressed than overdressed. Number 6. In paying visits of condolence, a lady should send in her card, and if her friends be able to receive her, the visitor's manner and conversation should be subdued and in harmony with the character of her visit. Courtesy would dictate that a mourning card should be used and that visitors should be dressed in black, either silk or plain coloured apparel. Sympathy with the affliction of the family is thus expressed, and these attentions are, in such cases, pleasing and soothing. So what we've got to do here is, what I like about this question is they give you the parameters. You don't have to really go searching through the text. So you can do this question straight off the bat and then read the text afterwards. But personally, I like to have a bit of an idea of what the rest of the text is about so that I can answer this question. So we need to identify 2 ways a visitor can show they are respectful. And straight away, I'm looking at this and it says, not be necessary to be guided. And if a lady is pressed by her friends, so there we go. If a lady is pressed by her friends, she can remove her shawl and bonnet. It can be done. So only remove items of clothing if asked. Okay. And that word there, pressed, tells me that. And this one, it's good to be neatly attired. Okay. It is good to be neatly attired. Basically, it's good to be smart. It's good to be neatly attired and dress smart. Now, on to question 5. Now, question 5 is quite a generous question, whereas in question 2, you kind of have the whole text. I like that they give you the line parameters on the exam paper. Again, what a lot of people do here is they spend too much time on question 5. It's 3 reasons, it's 6 marks. So it's really important, again, to use that point, evidence, explain formula. Remember the word successfully. Try and get that into the first line of your answer. Another really important point, I'm just going to bring up the mark scheme, is to ensure that you are giving your own opinion. Okay, so clear evaluative opinion with personal and critical judgment. So I'm going to start off by something like, I believe the writer is successful. Now read the question again. Is successful in offering advice about women's clothing. Again, I'm not going to say it says this in the text. Just hit the write a colon, open your quote mark, and find something which demonstrates where you think it's clear that there is advice being given. So I'm looking at the text. Wearing no jewelry. Wearing no jewelry. And, you know, don't be selective. Explain when they should wear no jewelry. At breakfast. Now I've got my personal evaluative opinion, I believe. I've not been critical yet, but I might leave that for the time being and just agree here. And wearing no jewelry at breakfast, I'd be correct. Even wearing no jewelry at breakfast, full stop. This suggests that there are well established social norms in regards to breakfast, wear, and etiquette. Okay, so straight away you can see that I've got my point in. Let's just underline it for you. My point is here. Okay, I've got the personal judgment in. I've got relative quotes, which are relevant quotes, which are appropriate. And then most importantly, the explanation is always the most important bit. That's where you should spend most of your time. I've tried to explain what the advice is, okay? I'm not going to do another a level 3 answer for this just for time's sake, but it's exactly the same as question 2. Try and be critical. What are the shortcomings here? Who's this text aimed at? That's what I'd be asking and making or trying to get my students to think about. So question 6, you've got another evaluative opinion question. So based on your evaluation of the text, how far do you agree with this question? Note that this is 12 marks. So this is a hefty chunk of the reading section here. I'd be spending about 15 to 20 minutes on this. Okay, it is, you don't have to use language features. You're not judged on your ability to use language features here. So it's a simple PEE, but you want to be doing roughly 4 paragraphs here. In my view, this article offers helpful advice to the reader who may need help on how to deal with lots of different situations. Now, straight away, what makes me think about this text is, who is this text for? As you can see, the mark scheme asks for convincing analysis of writers' ideas, opinions, themes, intentions, and or viewpoints. So I'm really going to try and focus on that idea of viewpoints. Who is this aimed at and why? Just by reading the text, I already disagree with this statement. I think the text is very narrow, okay? It's viewed at predominantly wealthy women. So I'm going to say that I believe the text does not offer helpful advice about different situations and instead focuses on a very narrow and small portion of people. So I've got my point in, okay, quite clearly here. This is critical, isn't it? So obviously you want it to be sustained and detached, okay? So sustained means you need to do it over more than 1 or 2 paragraphs. I'm just going to flick back for a quote. And we're thinking about the dress of a lady. So we could look at that one. And is there any others? We could even pick out a silk dress. So we've got the dress of a lady and a silk dress. Small proportion of people. For instance, it says we should consider the dress of a lady and talks of silk. Sorry, talks of a silk dress, full stop. This indicates that the text is aimed at very wealthy women and their and the social norms of the wealthy. I'm going to try and link it here back to the question just to make sure that I'm answering it and how to deal with a lot of situations. Women, but the social norms. This indicates that the text is aimed at very wealthy women and the social norms of the wealthy, suggesting that the situations mentioned do not consider or do not offer helpful advice to large parts of the readers. Full stop. Okay, so obviously here I've gone quite in depth in that explanation. Now, if you're really aiming for those top marks, that's what you want to do. Okay, the explanation or the analysis is really where you want to put in that time and effort. Again, as I said, 4 paragraphs for this question. And then personal judgment, I believe. So we've got that. It's detached, right? It's not too in depth into my feelings and what I think of the text. I've tried to be as objective as possible. And I've also believed the references are apt. Obviously, they're not discriminating, as at the moment I've only put in 2 quotes. That's another really good idea. If you can squeeze 2 quotes into 1 paragraph, you know, you're going to be getting the examiner to be looking further down this table, because at the very top, you've got limited references. At the very, well, level 4 is detailed references. So that's what you want to be aiming for, is the detailed references. I'll be back with another video for question number 7. Let me know your thoughts and comments if you have any. Thank you very much.